this meeting, right? Yep. So I'm
Yes.
now recording this meeting.
So,
Can you all hear me okay?
yes, I can.
Great. So we
I
have
can hear you.
Rosa,
Yes.
Shonda, Derek. Who else is here?
Yeah, this is Derek.
Sophia,
Yes.
Sunita,
Yes.
and is there someone else that whose name I didn't mention? Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Great. And let me turn my volume up a little bit, and if y'all could speak up, I would appreciate it. So, let me turn down my air conditioning. Lower that so I can hear you okay. First off, I appreciate your patience with some of the confusion in the organization of this class. And one thing that I want to say is that other than what aggravation you've already experienced, you certainly won't be penalized in any way for not doing something that was unclear. So I just wanted to put that out there. And in the process of good facilitation, hadn't even thought about this, let's do a quick check-in. And what I always do at the beginning of meetings is just go around and in any order that you would like, just say your name and what you're thinking or feeling as we're getting started.
My name is Sunita, and I'm thinking that I'm going to forget to ask a question, and then when the meeting is over, I'll remember it.
Thank you.
My name is Rosa, and I'm thinking that I hope that I get everything that I need from this discussion to be able to successfully lead the group this week.
Thanks.
Shonda, and I'm thinking that I am glad that you've had this call just to eliminate any confusion that we currently have or any confusion in the future.
Thank you.
My name is Sophia, and I am thinking that I am so confused about this course that I don't even know what questions I should be asking. So I'm hoping to get a lot of clarification through this call, which I'm really glad that you organized. This should be helpful.
Thanks.
And this is Derek. I just want to be clear on what assignments was expected of us in the assignments as individuals as well as the group.
Thanks, Derek. What am I aware of? Oh, that it's fall, and I don't like the winter, and it reminds me that we're going into winter because it's darker in my office than it usually is at this time. And what else? And I'll also say that all of you have really been participating in the class in a way that it makes it enjoyable for me to be a part of it. I really appreciate the level of participation. Okay. So what I usually do, let's step out of the conversation and go backstage for a moment. I usually do a check-in like this because I really like to know where a group is when we're starting. And the way that I do it is I ask people, I didn't give these directions, but I ask people not to respond, but just let everyone go around and take whatever time they need to speak. And then if there's anything we have to say after that, we can, but let people speak without being interrupted so all the participants can have a sense of where their colleagues are as they're going to work together. And I'll tell you, if I do a 3-day retreat with groups, which I do a lot of, it's really important to do this on day 2, because if there are things people are needing that they're not getting, they're going to bring that up. If they're confused, it's just good to know where you are starting with the group. Okay?
Yes.
So, Let me start here. I have some slides, and I'll put these up in class. So I created these today. And what I'd like to do is talk about the kinds of activities, whose performance is assessed, and what percentage of the course grade that will count for. And then I'll go into detail on the next slide, but this is high level. So we have some whole class discussions where you get individual grades for those, and collectively they'll amount to 25% of your course grade. We have project group discussions, and obviously those are the small discussion areas where you're speaking with the other folks on teams 1, 2, or 3. And your participation there and your facilitation of those groups collectively adds up to 25% of the course grade, but again, you're being assessed individually. There's a couple written assignments, I think there's only 2, where you're individually assessed, and that will account for 10% of the course grade. There are group written assignments, and again, I believe there are 2, but we'll see the detail on the next slide. And there, everybody receives the same grade for what you turn in as a group product. So if it's great work, everyone gets an A. If it's acceptable, everyone gets a B. If it's not acceptable, everybody gets a C. So your lots are thrown together on that one. And then at the residency itself, everybody will have an opportunity to facilitate for an hour. And you'll be assessed individually for that, and that'll count for 15% of your course grade. I'll go back and talk a little bit more about that, but I'd like that to be an opportunity for you to practice, to learn, not to be perfect. So I just want to say that at the get-go, that's all about learning. So if we look at across the 7 weeks, it looks like this. Week 1, we had 2 discussions. Can you see my cursor pointing here?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. And can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
So we had 2 discussions, each of which was worth 25 points in week 1, because there was discussion 1, discussion 2. That's the only graded activity that occurred in week 1, so that was a total of 5 points. In week 2, there was only 1 individual discussion. There was a project group discussion, but that's not being graded because it wasn't yet clear what the expectations were for that. And there was 1 group written assignment where you turned in the work product from your group discussion, so a total of 50 points for that. Now, let me look across weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This week, there is no whole class discussion, and there isn't any in week 5, and there isn't any in week 7. You'll notice in project group discussions, there's 1 every week that's graded from weeks 3 through 7. And then individual written assignments, there's 1 of those in week 3 and 1 in week 4. Group written assignments, there was 1 last week, and then in week 7, that's 100 points for your final course project. And then in terms of facilitation, that accounts for a total of 75 points, and that will be based on participation performance at the residency. So when all is said and done, whole class discussions count for 25% of the course grade, project group discussions 25%, individual written work 10%, project written work 25%, and facilitation 15%. So I hope you can see from this what the activities are. And I'm going to stop and see what questions you might have. Oh, I know what I want to say also. Let me see what the next slide is. I want to talk about the residency and the course projects, but let me go back to this for a moment. In the project group discussions, each of you will have an opportunity to facilitate those 1 week. And as I said, you'll also have an opportunity to practice facilitation when we're at the residency. So let me stop and see what questions you have.
Dr. Leahy, this is Shonda Edmonds. I have a question.
Sure.
So for yesterday, what was due yesterday?
What was I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we have to individually, under the assignments tab, submit something to you, or if our facilitator submitted something for our group, was that what needed to happen?
The latter. Something for your group, Shonda.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And if you didn't do it and still need to do it, I'll give you time to do that, given the lack of clarity, if any of your groups didn't submit a written assignment.
I believe our group submitted the assignment, but the facilitator of the group submitted the assignment. But should every individual of the group be submitting something?
Now, that's fine. If just the facilitator did it, that's fine.
Okay.
Rosa, Dr. If you, what I did, I thought at first when I went in for the where we would normally submit our assignments at the end of the week, first it had the word group up earlier. Then last night it asked, when I read it, it asked the attendees to take their project group notes and upload it there, where the facilitator posted in the group discussion our minutes that we had did as a group.
Right.
So I, at first I thought it was that the group, that each individual person, attendee was supposed to upload the group minutes into the submit assignments area. But when I went back and read those notes, it asked for the project group notes of us to be submitted up there. And the word group had been taken off there. But originally, earlier that week, it had group submit the group minutes there instead of that. But
Rosa, don't worry about that right now. If I see something missing from last week, I'll ask the folks for it. And
okay.
if the spirit of the assignment was met, that's fine. And if something's missing, I'll let you guys know. As I said, I don't want you to be penalized for lack of clarity in that setup.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'm the facilitator for this week for my group.
Mm-hmm.
What should we be accomplishing in the project group discussion section? I think last week we didn't really do much discussion posts.
Right.
Our discussion took place during our phone call.
Right.
So what should we be doing for this week that is demonstrated or displayed in the discussion section?
Great. And who's speaking?
This is Sophia, I'm sorry.
Sophia, that's okay. Sophia, go to the project group discussion area and look at the assignment for the week. And my recollection is it's clarifying roles and responsibilities and who's going to do what the deliverables are. So you need to facilitate a go-to-meeting and to have that conversation. You as a project group can use that discussion area to have written discussions among yourselves. And then you as the facilitator can upload the go-to-meeting recording under project group discussions. And so what I get to see is I get to see the written exchanges going back and forth that show up in that area, as,
Mhm.
as well as any notes or minutes from your meeting, as well as the recording from the GoToMeeting. So that's how I can assess everybody's um, participation in the project group work. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, so upload a recording, try to get our minutes posted there too, as well as any other miscellaneous notes that we have regarding our discussions over the course of the week.
Yeah, and you could, Sophia, you can use that area actually to have conversations with your group all week.
Okay.
Dr. Vic, now, the Google Docs, that collaboration and all of that, we used that last week, but the ideal situation is to take that activity and use it in the group discussion area,
Um,
communicate with our groups.
yes, or now what I
Okay.
want to do is I don't want to make it harder on you. Is there a way that you can copy and paste the work from the Google Doc in? So if that's working for you, I don't want to make it more complicated. As long as you can find a way to show the work that you've done, I'm fine with your using Google Docs.
Okay, because yes, you can. You can, you can. It made it easier to track changes
I
because everything was embedded in that document, and everybody had access to it.
uh-huh.
And we can take that and we can add it. I think our facilitator has. That's how he added the minutes to the group discussion
Great,
area
great.
last. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other questions, or I can go on and talk about other things and then come back to this.
Dr. Leahy, this is Khalid. How are you?
Good, Khalid. How are you doing?
All right. I just want to go back to Sophia's point because I think this was an area of confusion for our team. Based on the instructions for the weekly assignment, it had some key points that the facilitator was supposed to address, but also as an attendee. So pretty much what I did, I went to another group's page. I saw a couple of posts, not just from the facilitator, but also attendees. I kind of wrote up some things like what the facilitator did well and how the group came into play, the group formation. Are we not supposed to do that? Is that not required, rather?
Yeah, you stay within your own group.
Right? Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
stay,
which I did that. I just wanted to see what other groups were doing based on the instructions just to make sure I was on point. So I went back to my group after our facilitator had posted a recording of our meeting, which we had on Tuesday.
okay.
But I added some discussion items based on the instruction that's out there, that's on this site. So is that not required?
You added some discussion items.
Around our work together on Tuesday, I want to say one of the things that asked what went well for the group, what did the facilitator do well, and
Uh-huh.
are there any areas for improvement for the group?
And
Yeah,
Kylie, you posted under you posted that under group discussions.
right, from my group.
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay,
That's fine.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'll tell you, I'll tell all of you the way that I typically work. My interest is in your learning and in supporting your learning. And I tend not to get crazy about some of the nuts and bolts or nits and gnats or it having to be done a certain way. We're using these processes and these procedures as a way to make it easier. Um, and I also don't want to stifle creativity. So for example, when Rosa, I think, was saying using Google Docs, great. I'm not somebody that goes looking for faults to find to reduce grades, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm looking for evidence of learning.
Gotcha.
Dr. Leakey, I have one more question, Rosa. Um, when we when we look for the project objective, that objective is given to us each week within uh, that on that for the group discussion pages. We talk about facilitator and uh, attendee, and then he talks about the different objectives for facilitation and the
Right.
group and the overall course. We should be keying on that facilitation one for that week, right?
Yes, let me go to the next slide because I think that'll help.
Okay.
Let's talk about the next two slides. So the overall course project is to create a basic structure, checklist, decision tree, mind map. You use whatever you think would be good to help a facilitator understand evidence-based tips for how to facilitate a group.
Got
Include
it.
evidence-based tips. So support your evidence with, citations to the readings or literature. But this could be a mind map. It could be a short manual. It can be a checklist. That's the final product. That is the course product for which you're going to get 100 points in week 7.
Gotcha.
It should be user-friendly and concise. Shouldn't be too long or complicated. It won't be very useful if it's that. It's really something, as it says here, a quick guide that you can share with a co-facilitator to verify that you are consistent with your foundation steps and use of interventions, and that focus on its usefulness. And then every week, that project is due in week 7, right? Where you'll deliver the project and you'll have a discussion where you debrief that whole experience of working together over the course. And then for the facilitators in each of the 6 weeks, and Rosa, I believe this is what you were just pointing to, there are specific topics and deliverables for those 6 weeks. And the instructions for those are found under the group project discussion. The one exception is the residency week, where we'll all be together, and each hour is going to be dedicated to a different group facilitation topic. People will have an opportunity to serve as a facilitator, and the structure will be, I made a typo here. Look at that. The group conversation will be 45 minutes, and the debrief will be 15 minutes. Also at the residency, your project group will have 1 hour to do face-to-face work on your final project. Does that give you a preview of the residency?
Yes.
Yes.
I will be sending you a handout on the residency with hours and assignments by hours so that you're able to do some prep and not walking in there cold. I'll get those to you next week.
Thank
Is that okay?
Yes.
None of this is about tricking you, putting you on the spot. Even when, have you all taken your comps exam yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
You should know we're not. Whoops. You're not going to be answered obscure questions. If somebody could mute yourself.
Yes. That's me.
We're not going to pose obscure questions or things that you might have studied, might have possibly touched on in one class. We want you to do well on the competency exam. We want you to demonstrate your learning. And obviously, if you haven't learned some basic and core concepts, you're not going to pass it. But consistent with that spirit, this is not about having you jump through hoops or do something that's going to get in the way of your learning just for the sake of, what do they call it? Hazing, like they do in fraternities. The hazing consists of having to take stats courses. At least that's what I say.
Yeah.
But other than that, this is not about trying to trip you up. That's not what we're up to. So the same with this residency. I'm hoping it's going to be a good source of learning for all of us. And you'll be a bit anxious when you have your facilitation assignment. So I've been doing it for 30 years and I'm still a bit anxious. Welcome to the club. Okay, this is kind of open it up for conversation. What are y'all thinking?
Dr. Rosa. I guess one of the things I'm thinking about is that there's a particular style with the 4P management model. And there's some other, in the readings there, they talk a little about, the manager-led, and suppose there are some groups of people in the work world that they are manager-led.
Mm-hmm.
When we're trying to be facilitators, and I say trying to be, I know some people have a lot of experience, but in accordance with the Chicago School,
Mm-hmm.
our style should be more geared to what we're reading about. Is that not right? Like the use of the 4P, like for this next meeting, that new facilitators such as myself would use that structure, that 4P structure.
Mm-hmm.
And it talked about the prep and everything. Now, I have my agenda ready, but should you have the agenda ready, the book kind of says have that agenda ready and give it out to your people before you meet. But suppose your people, because you want to have them participate, feel like the agenda should be changed. Should we just wait? Should we wait and get there and allow them to do that, or should we put a note on that so that people won't, in those type of situations? I guess I'm trying to, in the work world, you would normally send an agenda out and everybody would follow it.
Right.
But what we're being trained by looking at the video and everything is that you want the people to take more part, even though you have an agenda. You leave a lot of stuff. It sounds like you leave a lot of stuff blank, and you let the team fill in, the more specifics of how you're going to carry it out, because you want them to be a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or can you give me some tips on it? Or
It's a great question, by the way. And I just changed the chart based on what you just said. And that is the expected style for the residency is pure facilitator. So, you could range from a pure facilitator to, a manager who's a facilitator. And that's really not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to operate from just pure facilitation, process facilitation, and helping the group to get covered whatever needs to be covered in that time. I'm going to create the agendas in advance, and I'm going to ask folks to follow those agendas given how little time we have. And so that'll be preset. Now, let me give you an example of what would happen in the debrief. Suppose one of you are facilitating an hour and you wind up with a group of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Rebels, iconoclasts who don't want to do anything that you've put forward. You'll have an opportunity to practice that, dealing with an unruly group. And then in the debrief, we'll talk about what happened and how the facilitator handled it. And if the group was being difficult and really the facilitator couldn't have done anything that was different or it was really challenging, we'll notice that and learn from it. That's not going to mean the facilitator didn't do his or her job. Because so part of what we want to do is, we're going through these practices, but there will be some real life aspects of this that, none of us can anticipate. You might have a person in your group who really monopolizes the airtime. We'll talk about that in a respectful way, right? In a very respectful way. Does that help?
Yes, and I guess I'm talking about like our being a facilitator for our week each week right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the agenda, I'm thinking that the facilitator has got to allow that group to participate in the agenda. Say my agenda would be to ensure that everybody has read the material so we can talk about it in discussion as a group.
Mm-hmm.
If I assign certain sections so that nobody's overloaded of the reading material and say, well, for the next 15 minutes you'll brief on this, and we'll have slides so that we all have a learning tool to go back and look at.
Mm-hmm.
Is that being authoritative type because you had that in the agenda, or should or should you have the agenda with that in it but no names? But that also may require us to have another meeting to get them to prepare. I'm just trying to make sure that I guess the worst thing that in my mind for my years, 30 years in work, is the authoritative style. I don't want to be pushing it on them, but yet I don't want us to be sort of like we were in week one. There was nothing really there, everybody was just scrambling and there's a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to say the book says have an agenda and send it out early. So I have my agenda ready, but I don't want to also be perceived in being authoritative, saying this is your agenda, this is what we got to stick to it. Or should I just put a note on there? This is just but we got to make sure that everybody has read the material so that we can have some thoughtful discussion going on about how we want to proceed, so that we're ready for our next step.
Okay, so what I'm curious about is, what do others have to say? How would you answer the question?
I think these are. Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm ready.
I think these are great questions. Is it Rosa?
Yes.
Yes, Rosa. These are excellent questions. I can just based on my humble experience. If you look at the role of the facilitator as providing structure that allows the group to use their expertise to meet the objectives, that's my way of approaching facilitation.
Okay.
I'm going to Houston tomorrow to facilitate a 2-day retreat, and I've been planning with one of the sponsors for about 2 weeks now, and I sent them the final agenda last Thursday because it is their group and it is their problem, and what I'm doing is providing some structure for us to tackle some issues. However, be comfortable that your agenda may have to change, because on Thursday, what the sponsors shared with me was statewide they had some terminations, layoffs, and there's some trust issue that now is present in the group about upper executive management.
Mm.
So she wanted to know, is there a place on the agenda where they can just debrief that?
Okay.
And we worked through that. So going back to your question, is not so much you're being authoritative. What you're doing, you're helping the group prepare for the meeting to meet the objectives. And the role of the facilitator is to provide the agenda, other things that allow a structured, guided decision, which is, the facilitator will take the lead on that, but you still allow input from the group because they own the problem or the objective that you're trying to achieve as well. So it's not really you being authoritative. It's, like Dr. Leahy said, this is pure facilitation, and you're responsible for the process, and the group is responsible for the content,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. That was very helpful.
So what I want to underline, Rosa, is you're asking really good questions. And that's important because in the design of a session, these are essential questions. And was it Khalid that responded?
Yes, Dr. Lee.
I'm sorry.
I loved your answer because God forbid, Rosa, you go into your group this week and you're going to facilitate a discussion and maybe you start with a check-in. And I say, God forbid, that one of the members of your group, has something terrible that's happened that day.
Yeah.
And that's why I do a check-in. And I might say on the spot, I'm not rushing by. This person's child is really ill today. And we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about that. Because, so that's where, or to the point that Khalid made, you can go into a group and maybe it just happened the night before that there was some announcement from the boss or he's saying layoffs. The value of doing a check-in is that's going to come up. You want to know what's on people's minds. And at that very point, you might have to change your agenda. And I'll tell you, I have been in facilitation sessions where I had to completely throw out the agenda.
Okay.
Have you had that, Khalid?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you. That helps me a lot. I was really kind of losing sleep over it. I did the agenda, but I was like, well, I don't have anybody to bounce it off, and I didn't want to wait too late in the week to show them the agenda since we had like a recurring meeting time. And so that helps me out a lot because when I do this check-in, if something is going wrong with someone, like you say, I can just say, well, let's let's do away with the agenda and let's start discussing. There's still some structure there where I would have read everything so I can still help them move along in the discussion.
Right, absolutely. And you can even say at the beginning of your session, look, I put the structure in place because I thought it would be efficient and save us having a second meeting. But if you want to do things differently, we can. You're never take that away from them. I wrote an article not long ago on a pure process kind of meeting that I do. And I described my role as the party planner. I made sure everything was like the structure, the plan for the evening, the food, the music, all that was done so that people could just do their work, which would there be having a party. But it wasn't my party. It was whoever hired me to plan that party, and for the guests to feel like, it was really worthwhile. So that, Rosa, I think that's real different from the authoritarian facilitator. It's their party, and they're going to tell the bride that the dress is horrible. Well, it ain't our wedding. You said yes to the wrong dress.
All right.
All right. Other
Yes, that's,
other questions?
and Khalid, I'm sorry, I said Derek, but I thank you for your comments.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Other questions from anyone about anything? I can't see the chat window, so if there's something in there that needs to be addressed.
Hey, this is Derek. I just wanted clarification on the assignment.
Sure.
Like, for example, week 3, there's no discussion questions due. There's a project group discussion that requires the facilitator and attendee. Now, within that project Dropbox, the facilitator provides a documentation that provides maybe the minutes, the agenda, and so forth and so on. Is it a requirement that the attendee do the same as well?
No, but I would expect that in week 3, you might use that project group discussion area, to have some conversations. People might offer reflections in there or have conversations that you couldn't have in your go-to-meeting.
Okay, so just serve basically as the dialogue so you can see that we're interacting amongst each other?
Exactly.
Collaborating.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. And then there's the written assignment that's due, and that's individual days?
That's right.
Okay, I'm clear. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And Dr. Vicky, you said you're going to post this so that everybody can see it?
I am. I'm going to post the PowerPoint and the recording in the announcements area. So if there are additional questions after this, just post them right there and we can continue the conversation there.
Dr. Legge, this is Sunita.
Hi there.
Hi, I wanted to ask on what needs to be turned in on Sunday. I turned in the minutes of our conversation as a facilitator, and I'm going to do another post today for the team to continue the discussion of the breakdown that happened during our call and what we could get from that as facilitators.
Right.
Other than that, week to week as the facilitators change, the facilitator should turn in minutes, and is there anything else the facilitator should turn in? Or it just depends on what you're asking?
Yeah, those things should be submitted under project group discussions. And so, for example, the conversation about the breakdown in your group, I would have that under week 3.
Okay.
Right, because that's like real and live now, and even though you're not the facilitator anymore, you can say, well, this happened last week. It's a place to continue the conversation among your group.
Okay, great. Now, as an attendee, what would you like for us to do from this point forward?
You can make posts in the project discussion area. If you like, you can certainly participate in the go-to-meetings. That's another way to show that you're just evidence that you're participating in the group.
Okay. What I was confused about was how often do you want us to post? As long as we're actively posting in the group project area?
That will be sufficient. Other than those weeks, which going forward are 4 and 5, where there are whole class discussions. It's basically show that you're active in those project group discussions, and a way to do that is by making posts. An easy way to do that.
By making the post, that's continuing the conversation or following the or creating an answer to the question in the post?
Any and all of those.
Okay.
Just
all right, great.
just use that as like your bulletin board discussion area for talking with your colleagues.
Okay.
I think the confusion, this is Sophie, I think the confusion just lies in the fact that we've had a very consistent structure with our courses so far, and we're just used to getting our points and our grades and being evaluated a certain way, and this course is very different.
Nice.
So.
Sophia, that's really good. I'm teaching a coaching class. Is the other class I'm teaching this term. And there's one post during the week where I want students to offer citations and references. There's another post where I do not want them to do that. I want to know only about their experience. I don't want to know about theory. And I have good reason for that. But they're so used to they're so used to adding references and citations that they're doing it. And given that class is highly experiential, it doesn't make sense, but they're doing it from habit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I acknowledge, you have a structure, and occasionally you're going to run into a course whose structure is different. Most of them will be similar.
Okay. And Dr. Legge, as we all create our own individual job aid, will each group eventually then turn in one job aid? Is that correct? So you'll have 3 or 4 group job aids?
Yeah, there's no expectation that you'll create an individual job aid.
No, it'll be a group job aid.
That's right. And that's the week 7 written assignment for which there's 100 points.
Yes.
And for which you'll all get the same grade.
Okay. So there's not one job aid that will be created by the entire class then?
No, there will be 3, one from each of the groups.
Perfect. I understood. I got it.
Dr. Lee, this is Khalid again, just for clarification, and this is a question that I've heard come up a couple of times and you've answered it. Just to be clear, during the week, you want us to use the group discussion to kind of enrich whatever happened in our group meeting. Either we're adding some insights, etc. But then what's due on Sunday is again, using the readings, your experience, and you write something and you submit it in the group project box, not the normal way we submitted assignments in the past. It goes to the group project box.
Khalid, I'm glad you said this. I don't expect that last piece. I don't expect you. So like this week, if I go in there on Sunday, so the project group discussion closes out on Sunday.
Okay.
If I go in there, I'm going to be able to see the GoToMeeting. I'm going to be able to see the notes. I'm going to be able to see how often you showed up, and if you're like pulling your weight in the group.
Okay.
And that's going to give me all the information I need. I don't need you to do an extra piece of work.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
And
yeah, I think there was a confusion within our group. Again, I think Rosa posted the agenda. As a matter of fact, she recorded the meeting. And just following what the instructions on the site, I posted an additional discussion, but I also put that discussion as close to APA format as possible and submitted it in a group Dropbox. So there's no need to do that.
There is not. And, this is another odd thing about my classes. In discussions, I do not expect APA format.
Okay.
I really want you to concentrate on the ideas and, post an attractive, readable post. But I don't want you wasting time on that. I want you really to put your energy and effort, and presumably you have a life outside of school also. And I'm more interested in the substance of what you're learning than how you format your citations.
Gotcha.
And there are really, I think I posted in class, there are faculty who really emphasize APA. That's just a life of You know, you deal with different people that have different expectations. So don't try it elsewhere. It might not fly.
Dr. Lakey, on with the residency, I know you're going to send something next week,
Yes.
and it might answer the question that I have, and I can definitely wait until we get that. When we get there, we'll be given sort of this is my imagination,
Uh-huh.
that we'll be given a task, an agenda, and we bring the skills that we've learned through our reading and personal experience as a facilitator, and kind of ad hoc or spontaneously facilitate the event around the agenda that you give us, sort of a surprise agenda?
No, there's no surprises. I'm going to give you the agenda next week.
Okay.
No surprises. No surprises other than the surprises that always happen when you put two human beings in a room together, right?
Right.
Yeah, we can't predict all of it, but there aren't going to be any surprises for me in terms of expectations. You'll have what you need to produce. You'll have the agenda, and you'll have some time to think about it before you get there.
Okay.
Dr. Leakey, one more question, Rosa. Will we still be in our same groups that we're in now, or will it become a total group?
Now, you'll be in your same groups.
Okay, thank
Well, I appreciate all of you being really conscientious about this, and it just shows me your commitment to learning, and I really appreciate that. And again, I'm sorry for whatever grief the lack of organization in the course room has caused. I've shared some of that grief, and I've communicated that, so that the course needs to have some things fixed.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
you.
Take care.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.